This week on Head to Head, is Luke Skywalker alive in the Rise of Skywalker?
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Mansell.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So the Mandalorian's in full swing, as you know. Now, you and I actually reviewed episodes 1 and 2. Was it the last podcast?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, these podcasts are going by so quick. So we ended up doing that, but you haven't had a chance to see the third episode, did you?
No, not yet.
Okay, because as you know, as we're recording, it's available now. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking what we should do is maybe next week, we can review episodes 3 and 4.
Yeah, kind of catch everybody up.
Yeah. Because, I mean, what are your thoughts so far? I mean, I know we went into this full review, but, I mean, have you had time, because, I mean, at the time that we did the review, it actually was like we had just seen the episode, and the newness of it was there. Mm-hmm. What do you think now after you've had a little bit of a chance to
kind of digest it a little bit?
Yeah, to kind of digest it a little bit.
Like I said, it's really good. I'm just really trying to figure out the timing of the show in the sense it's going to be 30 minutes or an hour, or because we really couldn't gauge that off the first 2 episodes. So
that's true.
That's what I'm really kind of interested on, because if it's going to be a 35 minute, program, and that's the other thing too, because it's on a streaming service, it's not necessarily geared towards like standard television time, because,
No, and if you think about it, like on the YouTube Premium, you got Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. That's only like 25 to 35 minutes.
And it changes from episode to episode.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like with that's, and you know what? I never thought about it really until now that, because it's on a streaming service, you don't have to worry about commercials or anything like that. So now they can kind of make it as long or as short as they want per episode. So
it just surprises me though that, they're only like that. Because it seems like every time you're just getting into The Mandalorian, it's over. Yeah.
Especially like the second one.
Yeah.
That second one was really quick. And that's one thing, like I said, I don't want to watch an episode of just him walking around and just... like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's very scenic. It's nice. I mean, it's beautiful
absolutely.
Shot. But it's like, let's get to it, Yeah,
I know. Like I said, it's going to turn into the whole 24 thing where it's Kim Bauer running from, a bear in the woods or something for 45 minutes. And it's like, no, we want to see, the other stuff.
Yeah, I just think that, there's more to the Mandalorian. I think that he's traumatized. That's one thing I kind of gathered from watching it again, is just that, yes, he's this lone gun slinger that's kind of just out there, but you can tell that he's really traumatized because of the flashbacks that he had.
Yeah, like back to the Clone Wars, exactly.
Yeah. And so that's kind of, I think that's going to lead, because that's kind of making me wonder, like, why he said, like, no droids. Because, like, why was he having such a big...
I think that's what it is.
But I think that's what it is.
I think we did see some flashback scenes where, there was some battle droids in there. And, and I honestly think that it's going to get, more meaty and more meaty as time goes on. I think they're just doing, like, kind of a slow setup.
Right.
Which I actually think is cool. I mean, there's a lot of elements that I like about it, but I just wish it were longer for that reason. But now you've also said that you started watching more Resistance.
Yeah, I haven't gone back to that. I haven't gone back to the Resistance just because I've been caught up in the Mandalorian and kind of really trying to really delve into that, because I was even watching the different things that I could spot from the original trilogy, such as the little eyeball droid that comes out.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out like what I can see in the background now, because at first you're just really trying to figure out the story. And so you're really trying to invest yourself or immerse yourself into the story.
That is true, because the story, it really wasn't all that clear when, you first watch the first couple episodes, and it's as it progresses that you realize, like, wow, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks you in before you realize you're being sucked in. Because at first I just watched it out of and at first I watched it out of curiosity. But
I mean, even though I've seen some other things now that it's been released, that's the other cool thing. Now they're releasing like these interviews that they had where I was watching Jedi Council, and they actually interviewed a lot of the people from like the composer. I think it's like Ludwig.
Oh yeah.
Who else did they interview? The Gina Morano. they interviewed her as far as how everybody kept screwing up her character's name. It's like people kept calling Kiara when it's like Kara, which is hilarious because if you ever watched the Supergirl series I was telling you about,
I still
like you'll get the joke with that. So that's hilarious to me. So it's just been really cool. I'm just really interested to kind of see, like, all right, does a Mandalorian ever take off his helmet or?
Yeah, I think eventually. I don't think he's going to do it in season 1. I think he's going to do it in season 2.
Yeah, I think at some point he's going to do it, though.
Yeah. What about you guys? Are you enjoying The Mandalorian? They got the 3rd episode that, like I said, premiered as we're recording this, actually. I believe it's called Sin.
Yeah, and it's actually the Mandalorian is actually going to be released on Fridays.
Yes.
So, yep.
So every Friday. So, unfortunately, like when we record these episodes, a new episode's going to be released. So, we're probably going to have to take it to where it's like, 2 episodes or something at a time, and we'll do a little bit of review, which is probably cool the way the show seems to be. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's a lot of... I'm sure there's going to be like big moments, though. Right. I heard there's some really big stuff in this episode. So, yeah.
All right.
So when you take this along with the next episode, I think it's going to be really, really cool.
Definitely.
All right.
Yep.
I think it's time to go.
Yep. Time to give me a drink.
Yep. Let's go to the Cantina. All right. So what do we got first on our Cantina segment?
All right. So we got to talk about the direction of the Star Wars franchise, being Benioff and Weiss are no longer doing their trilogy that we were kind of promised.
Yeah, I know. I got to say, man, I was really disappointed by that.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of have this whole Netflix thing that they're trying to honor and do. And I guess they couldn't do that and the whole trilogy at the same time, which I appreciate because at least that's showing the type of dedication that they don't want to screw up Star Wars.
But I don't know if that's really the case, though. I actually sense that there's something a lot deeper going on. Just because, because think about it.
Because of press cover.
No, it's a lot of the, well, I don't know if it's like that drastic, but okay, it started out where they were going to do this whole trilogy. Mm-hmm. Okay, then it was like, well, because they were going to do it and they were going to direct it the whole shot. Then it became like, well, we're going to write it, but we're not necessarily going to direct it. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, well, maybe we'll do one movie and then we'll, let other people do like the other 2 or whatever. Then it turned into, okay, we're going to write a treatment for it. It's like,
they just keep taking these weird steps.
Now, it could be, like you're saying, that the Netflix deal was brewing this whole time, and maybe they're just kind of like, okay, I don't know, that wasn't on the table before. We don't know how long the discussions were. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It just seems like with Star Wars, everybody, it's almost like for every director or whatever that gets it right, there's somebody that gets fired.
Yeah. This isn't something we haven't seen before. With Colin Trevorrow, with
exactly.
Lord and Miller. We've seen directors assigned to these projects and then they're scrapped. And, a lot of times, you kind of hear, it was creative differences. And then there's sometimes another obligation came up or even some people, you just don't even know why. It's just kind of like, well, he's out.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that, Kathleen Kennedy is really, you could say she's protective of the franchise, but other people are just kind of like she's just too, I guess, fascist about it.
Do you think that, like, it's, that the Star Wars franchise is just basically trying to almost, like, name drop? As far as when it comes to directors?
I don't know. I don't actually get the... I know what you're saying. It's kind of like almost let's bring in every hot director.
Yeah, it's like...
it's like, oh, they're popular this week, so let's just, bring them in.
Yeah, instead of just finding someone who's really good at storytelling, who's really going to convey everything that they have a great idea or concept, they have a story for it, it makes sense.
I used to think that until I saw a more recent interview, because, we've been sitting on this story for a little while. There's a lot of segments in this show, in today's episode in particular, that we've been
kind of holding back a little bit.
Well, we've been holding back on it because all this other stuff's come up, like the Mandalorian and everything just dropped like all of a sudden. And it's like, oh, we really need to do a review on this, you know? So, there's these stories that we've been holding on to a little bit, but in a more recent interview, you know, she recognizes, like, look, this isn't Marvel. This isn't, you know, like with the comic book, DC and Marvel, you have all this source material. You know, with Star Wars, it came out of this one guy's head. And there's just all kinds of things that you can explore. So she's trying to, you know, cultivate this in a way and nurture it. Stay true to the traditions of Star Wars, but at the same time, expand it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think, once again, it goes back to something we've been saying since probably last year, definitely, is that they need to really have a clear direction of where they want to go.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest problem is like, okay, because I've heard even things and rumblings that January they're supposed to announce the next film.
Really?
Yeah. So that's something that I've heard as of...
By who? Feige?
No, I don't know as far as who's directing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know who. I think they're going to name the director when they name the film at the same time. So that's something that I've heard is rumored. This
is like news to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rumored.
Look at this. The Cantina, we're revealing stuff to even the
to
host.
Each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it was like, okay, in January 2020, I heard we're supposed to get an announcement that they're going to announce what's going to be the next movie and the director. That's the rumor. Now, how true that is, we'll see.
Well, and, you know, with Benioff and Weiss here, essentially being out of the picture now, because remember, they had a whole release schedule based on it. I mean, it was like, what, 2022 was going to be, you know, the first one, and then, you know, I think it was like every 2 years or something after that.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, like,
and they were going to sandwich Avatar sequels in between those or something crazy.
Yeah, and then of course you still have, like, you know, all the content that has to be released on Disney Plus.
Well,
so
I look at that as different, though. I look at the whole Disney Plus, like, I think that they have a trajectory for the films, and then you have the Disney Plus. I don't necessarily think one's going to interfere with the other.
Right. I'm not saying they're going to interfere, but I'm saying that everything has to align and match up because everything's going to be canon.
Well,
so you have to make sure there's continuity with everything, because you can't have them talking about the Force one way and Kenobi, and then they make a whole other movie about the Force that kind of completely, you know, dismantles that.
That's absolutely true.
You know, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
So I don't know. I mean, like, I like the fact that at least they are taking their time and saying, "Hey, okay, we don't have it just yet."
I think they have to. I don't.
Yeah, because it's
they have a choice
steps.
Because exactly, it's kind of like if they keep. I mean, Star Wars, although it's a behemoth of a franchise, and it's in the public consciousness because of Solo, everybody is learning that it's not the infallible, invincible franchise that everybody thought it was. That if you just slap the Star Wars name on it, you know,
it works, right?
Even though, I mean, let's face it, Solo still did impressive numbers. I mean, if it were anything other than a Star Wars film, people would have just been all over it.
The thing is, there's nothing wrong with Solo. Like,
no,
I mean, and that's the
really
thing. It's
enjoyed
like
the movie. Honestly,
there's nothing wrong with Solo. The only thing that was wrong with Solo was that it wasn't promoted properly. That was the only thing, really, I could really.
And it came out like 5 months after The Last Jedi or something.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, it might have been released a little bit too soon, but I mean, as far as the content of the movie, though, it was nothing wrong with it. Alden Ehrenreich did an excellent job. You know, Glover played Lando.
Well,
perfectly.
I thought he was definitely the standout. I mean, I could say, and you know, we talked about this on one of our earlier shows where, you know, there were some issues with Solo, but overall, it was really good. It was fun. The problem is it's a movie that nobody really wanted, and I think that was really more.
Yeah, it was something that they didn't want, but I think it gave us a great ending with the whole Maul thing.
The Maul thing was fantastic.
That was a surprise to everybody. And I think Ron Howard really did an excellent job, you know, bringing that film home. But I think, like I said, the biggest one for everybody, it's been really the sequel franchises, because one, okay, you have some people who are like, Force Awakens, although they liked it, they felt it was too close to the original New Hope.
Yeah.
Then you get to, you know, the Last Jedi, and then now everybody, that really split the fan base after that. So then now you got this one last like hurrah that's trying to like, all right, hopefully we can get it all together. And even JJ himself said in the interview that, you know, initially he was, of course, he kind of played it safe with Force Awakens. He did it intentionally because he was like, look, he kind of wanted to have that vibe just because he wants to get everybody immersed back into that world.
Basically reintroduce Star Wars here.
The
But
way
it's
that
almost
everybody,
like a soft reboot in a way.
Yeah, that everybody kind of knew it with the whole practical effects and locations and things like that.
Yeah, kind of bring it back from where the prequels were.
Right.
You know, where it's just like one guy and a green screen. It's like, okay, you're interacting with like 30 people. And it's like, but I'm not.
Right, exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah, so...
There's a guy with like a puppet on his head in a green suit. It's kind of creeping me out.
But yeah, and then you get to, The Last Jedi, and then now that's it takes too many risks. And so you need to find that happy medium. And I think that's what JJ has to do with The Rise of Skywalker. It has to have that happy medium where people can feel like, okay, yes, Star Wars has advanced and it's moving in a different direction, but it's not so crazy to the point
here's the thing, and
where people hate it.
You can see this in the Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. Like everybody likes the Mandalorian. It's kind of like somebody found something in Star Wars again that everybody like. Oh, we all like this.
Well, that's how we felt about Rogue One.
Yeah,
I don't think too many people had a problem with Rogue One.
No, I think you're probably right about that.
And initially, I didn't. I remember. I think I said it. Like I really didn't see the point. Of Rogue One.
I know. Well, I like the idea of Rogue One, but I was really skeptical because number one, it was the first of the non-saga films, and then of course the other thing was it was just like it's going to be kind of like a Star Wars war movie, which in theory and conceptually sounds like a fantastic idea, which as we saw it was. But I'm like, I don't know. It might go too far away from what we're used to. That it might not really feel like Star Wars.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it had enough elements that you have that presence of what we know as Star Wars in it. Like the scenes with Vader wasn't too much, but it was just enough that gave you like, okay, this is definitely Star Wars because the baddest man in the galaxy is still roaming around and he's still kind of in controls of stuff.
I really like the whole way that, they depicted the stormtroopers and the way that, they just showed the interaction between the Empire and the Rebellion. And it felt more like a real gritty war movie, even down to the last battle at the end. And honestly, that's why, kind of bringing it back full circle, I'm actually really disappointed about this Benioff and Weiss thing because they were more than likely, I think it was confirmed actually, they were going to give us an Old Republic movie.
Right.
Now, they have said that they haven't abandoned the idea.
Right.
So somebody's going to come in and make it. But these guys would have just been the
They have
best.
the pedigree for it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, I guess I could get Peter Jackson in to do it.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I'd be into that.
Yeah. Or some of the people who've done like Spartacus on HBO.
Oh, yeah.
What are some other... I wouldn't say like the 300 movies per se. Wouldn't go that far, but although you could, I guess, in a way. You could
get like Ken Burns to do the documentary of the Empire kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, they could go into some interesting directions.
Yeah.
Well, what about you guys? What do you think? You have to be heartbroken by this whole Benioff and Weiss thing, but, what do you think? You think that who do you think they're going to get to actually do the Old Republic movie since it's not going to be them? Let us know in the comments. Would love to hear from you. All right. What's next in the old cantina?
So, a lot of people have been asking about, Anakin Skywalker, returning in the Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. Should he be in it?
Yeah, I struggle with this one. I really do. I struggle with this one a lot because, we've talked about this off camera before. Mm-hmm. And, of course, occasionally it'll come up in conversations with friends because, I'm a Star Wars nerd and so are a lot of my friends. And it's like on one hand, first of all, I don't know who I want to appear. I mean, some people think that Darth Vader can come back. It's almost like I don't know how they would make that work either, though, because we saw Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
But on one hand, I think it would be really interesting for two reasons. Number one, I'd like to see an interaction between Anakin and Luke, but as Anakin. Because if you remember, he only really... he kind of had the interaction at the end of Return of the Jedi, but... was really more Darth Vader and Luke. You know, to see an Anakin-Luke conversation, similar to the Yoda one that we got in The Last Jedi, I think that would be cool. Yeah. I also think an Anakin-Kylo conversation or interaction would be kind of cool. Because remember, he was all, you know, I'm going to finish what you started, and, you know, he's basically a Vader worshiper. And if Anakin appeared, it was just like, did you kind of read the last part of the story where, you know, I threw my master down a shaft?
All right. And there you gave his master the shaft.
Yeah. Quite literally, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know, but at the same time, as much as I would like to see it, they'd have to be really careful on how they did it, though.
I concur.
Because it could go into some cheese factor, like
really quick,
really easy too.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The only way I really see it working or making sense in my mind is, and this kind of ties into kind of our, you know, main topic for today, but I think that, you know, we last saw Luke in the Last Jedi. He kind of disappeared, and, you know, we all believe him to go basically become one with the Force.
Right.
And we all know that Anakin became a Force ghost. Mm-hmm. What would make sense and would be kind of like, okay, you know, Luke being able to have that conversation with Anakin in that Force realm to kind of like, this is what happened. Like, this is really what happened. This is what happened to me. And, you know, I don't think Luke kind of got closure in his own way, because at the end of Return of the Jedi, he got to see his father redeemed. But he's never really had that conversation with
exactly.
him to say, like, this is who your mother was, this is who I was, and this is what happened. And then he can make that comparison to Kylo. Now, what would make sense is if Luke appeared to Kylo, because in The Last Jedi, you know, he said, you know,
see you around, kid.
And then, of course, you know, he always used that line, if you strike me down, I become more. So he used that parallel would make sense if Luke appeared to Kylo saying, like, listen, this is not the reason, this is not the way, and this is why. And that may actually be the best way if you want to include Anakin. But other than that, I really don't see, because once again, you still have to tie up so much. We got to find out so much about this in this movie that...
Once again, I don't want to see like a bunch of different characters shoehorned into this thing just because it's the final film.
Right.
I mean, first of all, there's the rumors that they might do a Darth Vader series on Disney Plus, in which case, you know, Hayden Christensen returning for that, like either in some flashbacks or, you know, whatever, that would make sense.
Or just throwing him between that. We've always talked about like that. Now on this will like get massive ratings, honestly. Like, you think The Mandalorian is getting a lot of, you know, buzz. If you did like a Vader between what happened at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, yeah.
Up until like almost like Rogue One era.
Oh, yeah, even Rogue One, right.
If you bring it up to that point, that whole Jedi Purge and everything like that, that right alone right there would just
because you
massive.
Get like a whole Emperor Palpatine thing going in there. Oh, yeah, man, that would be...
That's like, I could see like 6 seasons out the gate with that.
Oh, yeah, that would just be incredible.
Yeah.
And it seems to be where they're going, because, you know, there's rumblings of a Boba Fett series. There's rumblings of a Darth Maul series.
Yeah. But I think, you know, if you're going to put, like I said, with Anakin, the only way I can see it, the only other way I can see it is maybe Kylo's in the process, because we saw in the trailer where they find, you know, where they're back with Vader's smoking helmet or whatever, and they eventually destroy the whole thing. But if in Kylo's quest of trying to get more knowledge about the Sith and whatever, he comes across a holocron or something like that Vader entry that Vader put in.
See, now that's where it would make sense.
Yeah,
if you get an Anakin or a Vader thing in there with the holocron.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, his feelings and his emotion, because that
Dear diary.
Well, see, that would make sense though, because it's like, okay, you know, much like the Jedi, you know how everybody idolized the Jedi, but Luke knows really what it's like to be a Jedi and the failures of a Jedi. Kylo idolizes Vader. And so if you get Kylo to see like, hey, this is what Vader is really going through, like behind closed doors, like, yeah, you saw him as this big war hero in your eyes, but behind closed doors, when we knew Vader was like in pain and he was always conflicted about how
like
he
you
was
see a little
duped and
bit
how he
more
was
like
upset.
kind of his inner
inner thoughts that would be really relevant.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Well, what about you guys? Do you think Anakin should be in the Rise of Skywalker, or are you leaning kind of with us where it's kind of like, you know what? Let's save him for another series where the whole thing would be more relevant. Let us know in the comments. You can always hit us up at Head to Head SW on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We always love to hear from you. All right, what do we got next?
All right, so Star Wars Resistance Reborn. There's a book out, and it's written by Rebecca Ronhorn, and basically it's...
You know what? Have you heard of her?
No, I haven't. Like this.
Is she like some sort of a newcomer to the whole?
I believe so.
Because I've been reading the books for a long time.
Yeah, I know. Claudia Gray. We know.
Well, and that's even in the new canon. And then, of course, when you go to the Legend series, because some of them, like Timothy Zahn, he's written a couple of new canon books.
Right.
I don't know. I think James Luceno has, but I could be wrong. But there's all the people that, of course, we know of.
Right.
But this lady, I never heard of her.
Yeah, and this is basically set in a time period of between the events of the end of the Last Jedi, and I guess it's leading up to the events of Rise of Skywalker.
Well, it kind of makes sense because if you think about it, they really needed to do this book, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And here's why: because at the Last Jedi, the entire Resistance could fit like on the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
That's kind of a problem.
Indeed.
You know that. And then, of course, you see the Rise of Skywalker trailer, and then...
You see all these ships.
You see all these ships, and, they're all riding on these horses, and you got all these people. It's like, okay, something happened...
Yeah, how do we get
between
here?
these two, and how did we get here?
Mm-hmm. Well, I love when they kind of bridge the gap, in between, because now you can kind of
I really wish they would do something like to bridge the gap between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. I know they got the Mandalorian, and that technically is kind of doing it, but I really wish they would do more, because that's like a 30-year time period.
Well, I'm sure they're probably going to hit on that eventually.
Well, maybe after the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, it might,
once all the, look, every secret is out, everybody knows how this is going to end, maybe then they can go back and...
Mm-hmm. The only problem with that, though, is that during that period, you will have to try to explain. You will have to show Han and Leia and Luke and everything like that, and so...
Well, they were actually thinking of doing some sort of a series where they de-age Mark Hamill by like 10 or 15 years or something, where it was kind of like showing how Kylo went wrong, how he went from Ben Solo to Kylo Ren, basically. Mm-hmm. So they were going to do something like that, where they weren't going to make him look like he was 28 or something like that. But he's like, what, 62 or 3 or somewhere in there?
Well,
they were going to make him look like he was like 50 or something.
Yeah, but then you would have to try to get Harrison Ford back.
Well, maybe
Carrie Fisher
depends
can't
on
get
it.
Back.
Depends. It really depends on what you do, because you could focus on his time at the whole Jedi training thing, and he probably didn't have much interaction with his parents at that point.
Yeah, I guess if you covered it from that standpoint, yeah.
If you did, the whole Snoke thing, but have you read anything about this novel?
Yeah, I read maybe like one chapter of it, and it's basically. It kind of kicks off with Leia, talking about her. She's kind of looking back over her life, like, how many close calls she's had. Mm-hmm. One, of course, when Hosnian Prime, and then the other being tortured by Vader. Then the other is, just being blown out into space and, using the Force to come back. So she recalls all that, and she's just like, she's kind of getting old and tired of it a little bit. And she's like, I can't do this forever, so she's going to have to pass it to somebody, and somebody's going to have to step up and really be the next Leia. And so I believe is this new character, Zay.
Wow, it's not even Poe.
Well, Poe was definitely mentioned in it, and she's of course dealing with Poe, but on the political side of things,
well, yeah, like, right. Poe would be more the military side.
Yeah,
of it.
Exactly, and I think he's more like that field commander general, almost like a Lando kind of guy. But you need somebody at the helm who can handle the politics of it all.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of where this story, I believe, is kind of taking place, and that's kind of where it's kind of going. So it's interesting. It may sound like a diet.
I don't know. You know, it's funny because I'm still trying to get through Thrawn Treason. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal book, by the way. In fact, it might be my favorite of the three. But at the same time, it's just, as schedules the way they are, it's like I just haven't found that time yet to just go in and start reading these books. And it's like, now all the Journey to the Rise of Skywalker books are coming out, and I'm like, man, I really want to read this though. And I think this is one of them, actually.
Yeah, this is definitely one of them.
And this is definitely on my radar of books that I want to read. What about you guys? You guys interested in this? If not, which books are you interested in? That's something we'd love to discuss. And in fact, I know we talked about, in addition to this podcast, actually doing book review shows and different review shows. We're trying to expand our library here on Head to Head. Give you guys more videos, more content. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You'll see the subscribe button, I think right down, in there. So
somewhere over there.
Yeah, somewhere. It's like in the bottom right of the screen, I believe. So click that button, subscribe to us. We're going to have a lot more content coming soon. Mm-hmm. All right, what's next?
All right, well, we got Duel of the Fates. All right, so this week, the question is, who's the better bounty hunter, Jango or his little boy, Boba?
You know what? You've been actually really kind of knocking it out of the park with a lot of these Duel of the Fates ones. Although you kind of pulled a fast one on me. Was it last week? Or it was kind of like I thought you were going one thing. Yeah, it was. It was a Phantom Menace, Force Awakens
the
thing.
Better story.
Yeah, instead of the better movie, it ended up being the better story. I'm like, gotta change my answer now.
Yeah, man, gotta keep you on toes.
I'm gonna have to say Boba Fett.
I'm going Jango.
Really?
Yes.
All right, you go first this time.
All right, I'm going Jango Fett simply because he was around during the time of when the Jedi were actually prevalent. So he's had to go up against those kind of guys, more often than Boba would have. And then the fact that, he's learned everything from his dad. I mean, that's kind of like...
he is a clone.
Well, not Boba. Well, he was an unaltered clone. Yes, he was a clone, but he wasn't aged.
Well, it wasn't, he wasn't, he was unaltered. And also, I think part of the unaltered aspect of it included not just the
age,
quick aging thing, but also the fact that they didn't make him like a perfect soldier. They didn't alter his personality. He just
yeah.
And I understand. And you know what, I almost went with Jango for the same reason, because he's gone up against Jedi, he's gone up against a lot of enemies. But here's the thing, and here's what you got to look at, and this is why I'm going with Boba. Because Boba's the legendary one. And there's a reason for that. Boba's actually gone against a lot of... he actually has gone against Jedi. Now, granted, this is where it's going to be really interesting, because a lot of that comes from Legends. Mm-hmm. A lot of the Boba Fett stories that we've read and a lot of the information that we get from the character really comes from what was once the expanded universe and is now Legends. So it's, Boba's kind of in that no man's land now, because we really, other than the movies, which really don't feature much of him, we don't really know what's canon anymore about him.
Well, most of the stuff you find out about Boba, it really is more, like you said, in the books as opposed to film.
Yeah, that's true.
But the thing is, the reason why I say Jango is because, you got to look at, Palpatine being who he is, wanted to create this army.
Yeah, I know.
He went out and found the best of the best. And
that's a good point. I do have to concede that one. That, yes, but once again, Boba Fett's name is legendary, and he's feared among everything. And the idea was, and this might actually be in the commentaries that Lucas did for the original trilogy when he did the DVD commentaries, is that Boba kind of improved upon, his dad's abilities or whatever, and he became fearsome. This guy would collect Wookiee pelts because he defeated like tons of Wookiees in battle. He defeated Jedi. Again, we don't know how much of this still remains, and how much of this really kind of held on to the new canon, because they really haven't really talked about Boba a lot. It's one of those things where he's definitely mentioned in some of the new canon books, but not really heavily.
Yeah, I think also you have to look at like, okay, Jango's illustrious career. Yes, Boba is a legend in his own right, true. But I look at also like the final moments, man. It's like,
well,
he gets, accidentally knocked into a Sarlacc pit.
That's not. But
how does Jango die? He gets beheaded by Mace Windu. It's like, if you're gonna die a man's death, that's just it.
all right. All right, it was a terrible. I was always wondering what was going through Lucas's mind when he wrote the whole Boba Fett thing. It's like, you created this really cool character, and it's some slapstick,
Three Stooges.
Yeah, Three Stooges style thing. Even as a kid, like, how old was I when I saw that movie? Like 12. Even as a 12-year-old kid, I'm like, really? This is how this like super cool bounty hunter is going to go out? Somebody accidentally hits his jetpack with a staff and he goes flying. At least he got into the Sarlacc pit. That was kind of cool. The book that the Tales from Mos Eisley, where they show his escape from the Sarlacc, that was kind of cool. And that's what everybody really wants to see.
Well, you know what? I'm going to throw you a bone here because I had to think about it. Just sitting here thinking.
Yeah, as you're jabbering on and on, and
as you're prattling on and on about why you're
prattling
wrong.
on, and my mind had a chance to wander.
But but no, I think that although Jango had like a warrior's death almost in a way, like he died on the battlefield.
He definitely did, man. Being beheaded by Mace Windu is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, but. Man, the fact that like Boba Fett had to like die inside the belly of something that's just slowly digesting him for like years, that's that's kind of gruesome, man.
That's it. I'm glad you brought that up. I can't believe I almost let that one go. Right.
Yeah,
yes,
like that's
his delivery system into the Sarlacc pit was a little slapstick Three Stooges style, but it's a cool death, man.
Yeah, to be slowly digested.
Come on.
That's kind of
over 1,000 years.
Yeah,
that's kind of creepy, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Sarlacc pit just looked. That's the thing too.
You don't know what's in that thing either, man.
Exactly. And here's the thing. When you really think about all these crazy, gruesome things that are on Tatooine, it makes you wonder how people even survive that planet.
Yeah.
You're just walking along, and can you imagine seeing that thing?
Yeah, or especially at night, like you just not only even see it, you just walk around.
You just accidentally fall into it, and 1 minute you're just walking across the sand, the next minute you're in the belly of this. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
just saying.
But even with that being said, I still going with Jango.
You're gonna go with Jango.
Still going with Jango.
All right, I guess it was a true duel of the fates.
Yeah, we haven't had one in a while.
So, you guys, you can actually choose to see which one of us you're siding with, because this time we're taking opposite sides. No more, love fest duel of the fates for this one. We're really going at it. So do you think, like me, the correct way? Do you?
Oh, brother.
Isn't Boba Fett the best?
No.
Or do you want to go for a more, unpopular opinion and
toss you in the Sarlacc pit?
Yeah, right. Hey, you gotta admire the spin I'm putting on this thing.
Right.
What do you guys think? Who do you think is better, Boba or Jango? That's the bottom line. Let us know in the comments below. All right. Now we're gonna get into it.
Yeah. So this segment we call From a Certain Point of View. Yeah. So
it's our main topic.
Yep, it's our main topic. And this week we're talking about, is Luke Skywalker still alive from the Last Jedi?
When you actually say, is Luke Skywalker still alive, you're not talking about just like,
flesh and blood.
Actual flesh and blood.
Yeah.
So now are we are we coming at this from more of a standpoint of, you know how I am. I like to get clarification.
Clarity.
Are we talking about the fact that he never actually died, or are we talking about a resurrection situation?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
All right. Touche.
Returning that serve, buddy.
I guess either way. I mean, I think either way, because I just feel like, Well,
what made you actually think of this?
Well, because there's been there's a lot of talk that people have said that Luke actually transcended. He didn't die. He teleported someplace else, or he when you become so powerful in the Force that you can actually return. And like we said, we always talked about the Yoda scene. The fact that he was actually able to. Well, that brings up a lot of things in the present time.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing, honestly, that stood out the most to me about The Last Jedi. And people seem to just
gloss over that.
They gloss over it. It's like, is anybody going to point out the fact that Yoda is like coming out? He's like touching people. He's causing, lightning to hit. He's doing all this stuff. I mean, essentially, what really is making him a ghost in this situation? It's almost like he's back.
Yeah, it's almost like, and that's why I think there's a point where, what are the limitations, of course, of being a Force ghost, and are there levels? Because I think that when you've matured that far into the Force, because even like, for example, Mark Hamill let out a tweet when people were asking like, okay, is Luke really dead? And, his explanation was really cool. He basically essentially said that, like, the Force is like a drug. And essentially, Luke overdosed on the Force. So it's like the one thing that, like, of course, it's kind of like, okay, I'm an addict. And then I, got cleaned up, haven't used it in a while. And then the one time you use it again, you die.
Make sure we're not back in the cantina over here.
So I think that, that was a cool explanation. He was basically saying that, like, Luke is gone. But a lot of people feel like he's hamming up the Force Ghost aspect, because normally when people ask, what are your role in the next movie, it's everything is hush hush. The fact that he kind of just blatantly put it out there like, oh, yeah, I'm a Force Ghost. So some people are kind of wondering, like, okay, are they? Yes, you might be a Force ghost.
Oh, is this like one of JJ's misdirection things?
Yeah, or like he's playing. Yes, like it's almost like from a certain point of view. Like, yes, I was a Force ghost at the beginning of the movie, but by the end, I might actually return. So, I said was true from a certain point of view.
Not only that, but he was the one in the trailer that says, no one ever really is gone or something like that.
Exactly. So there's always those hints. And I think that, quite frankly, if you have, and I'll put it to you this way, we never really got to see, we kind of got to see the best of the best because we saw Yoda versus Palpatine.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, all right, well, Rey definitely is not anywhere near Luke Skywalker's ability.
No.
Kylo is nowhere near Luke's ability.
Nope.
So you got Palpatine, and it's like, okay, the only way I can see is like, unless Palpatine's in that severely weakened state, which would make sense.
Yeah, kind of like a Voldemort kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, is that the only? Because if that's the way that these two can beat Palpatine, that's kind of like a cheesy way.
Yeah.
Whereas people have always wanted to see what would have happened
if Luke really powerful Luke went up against Palpatine.
Exactly, and that would be the biggest climactic
I would think
end.
that Palpatine was somewhat weakened anyway, just because of his age at this point, and he was thrown down a shaft. I think a lot of it is going to hinge on how did Palpatine come back.
Yeah, true.
That's really what we're going to have to figure out here. Is like what are the circumstances that are leading to him coming back?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could either shine some light on how Luke can come back, but, kind of on the other side, or we'll know exactly where Palpatine is at as far as power. Like, is he kind of like what we talked about, a few weeks ago or whatever? Like, what level of power is he coming back?
Right.
You know, is it going to be like Return of the... I think that's what the discussion was. It was like, is it going to be like Return of the Jedi level, or, you know, is it going to be a little bit weaker or what? And that, I think, is really going to greatly shine a light, at least, on, you know, what Luke's capabilities could be. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, you now have two guys that are, I guess, more or less equal in force power. I mean, I would probably say Luke definitely has an edge.
Mm-hmm. Just simply because he's younger.
Well, not only is he younger, but he's kind of like the grandson of the Force.
That too.
You know, it also depends on how much of the Legends stuff they bring in, too. You know how they're always borrowing from Legends. Mm-hmm. You know, is it going to be one of those deals? I mean, it's just going to be really interesting to see, because that's why I think this movie is so exciting. We really don't know. It's like we know enough to make us go, well, how's that going to happen? And what else are they going to spring on us? Well,
yeah, I mean, because the thing is, the cool thing about the sequel trilogy is that we're back in a place. Well, I can say I kind of have the feeling that you all had when the original trilogy came out.
Right, where you don't really know what's coming next.
Exactly. Whereas the prequel, we all kind of knew how it had to end. We just didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know how it was going to get there, but we knew okay, they got to hit like certain beats and certain points in the story.
Exactly. So I think that's the thing that makes this trilogy so interesting. And I just really feel like, you know, it would be, because I think a lot of fans really want to see Luke one more time be Luke Skywalker. I mean, that was really cool. Like I said, in the Last Jedi, when he's able to project himself across like the galaxy. I mean, that's pretty powerful when you really stop and think about it.
Yeah, but I get it. It was more of a cerebral use.
Yeah,
it's more Picard than Kirk, if I may.
Yeah,
you know, use a Star Trek reference. And, you know,
that other franchise.
Freak all the Star Wars fans out. But yeah, I mean, it's more of an intellectual, you know, Force kind of thing. It's not the swashbuckling style Luke Skywalker that I think everybody wanted to see.
Right.
You know, and I admit I wanted to see that.
Yeah, of course. We all wanted to see, you know, him fire up the blade one more time and, you know, get after it. But.
Well, and that's why I'm really hoping that they give us maybe the best of both worlds. Like maybe they give us, he could be kind of like what you said, start out as a Force ghost, but finds a way to come back in flesh and blood or whatever. Or, you know, I mean, it would be intriguing to see a Force ghost battling alongside the living.
Right.
You know, I really don't know where that could go. But let me pose another question now.
Shoot.
Should he come back?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
I think he should.
Because this is the thing that this is like that flip side to this point. It's like, okay, we can talk about what we think is going to happen, but should it happen? Because this is actually a problem that a lot of people have with The Last Jedi. A lot of people will readily admit that The Last Jedi, you know, took some risks, and it was a good story, but it wasn't really what people wanted to see. And even though everybody, you know, commended, well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people that liked The Last Jedi, let's put it that way, they commended Rian Johnson for taking the risks, taking Luke in a more realistic, you know, direction. But at the same time, everybody was debating, should they, including Mark Hamill himself, like, is this really what Luke would have done? Should we have gone here? And this is where we can go now with this discussion in The Rise of Skywalker. Okay, we kind of covered what we think, you know, could happen or the circumstances by which they might happen. However, should it happen? Now, you say yes.
Yeah, I say yes because, one, Palpatine's back.
Well, yeah, okay.
I mean, so it's like...
Hey, when darkness rises, light rises to meet it, right?
Exactly. And you knew exactly where I was going with that.
Yeah, I know.
And that's...
You've been using that a lot. It's not a criticism, mind you. I'm just saying that phrase must have really resonated with you or something, because you've been using that on like every other podcast we've done.
Well, yes, because, but it makes sense though, because when you have, in order to have that type of balance. And see, the whole reason why
I think actually one of the better explanations they gave in the Star Wars realm. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, because like, you know, and this is part of the reason why I felt like Luke had to go away. It was because in order for Rey to step up, in order for Rey to ascend to the position, because now you have Kylo, dark, Rey, light. So those two are evenly matched, basically.
Right, and so now you get Palpatine dark and now Luke light.
Exactly. So now you have to have somebody who's going to tip the scale to where it's fair again.
It's going to be interesting. I have to admit, I'm really looking forward to seeing where they're going to go, because I mean, I agree. I didn't really think that Luke should have died in the first place.
No.
That was the only thing that I disagreed with. I mean, I understood, okay, Force Awakens was Han Solo's movie, and so he's gone. You know, they're slowly trying to hand the mantle off to the new characters. And now, you know, this is Luke's movie. Leia presumably maybe would have bit the dust at the end of 9 if Carrie Fisher hadn't unfortunately passed. But my whole thing has always been, you can pass the torch on to these new characters without necessarily killing off the old ones.
True. And I think, you know, as long as you know Luke Skywalker is still around, it's like he's the most powerful. It's almost kind of like, you know, Yoda is still out there, you know. So I think that, and I mean, you can always kind of have Luke become the whole new Yoda, where Rey can kind of go back to Luke and say, hey, you know, what about this? What about that? So there's always that aspect. But I think that one of the biggest reasons is that Palpatine is back, and you have to have someone who's powerful enough to deal with him. Now, granted, there's the talk of, okay, if Rey and Kylo, those two together could best Palpatine in a sense, because it's like,
you could say that because Palpatine, I mean, he's like 130 years old at this point. I mean,
yeah, and it's
seriously.
Like, well, yeah, but the whole thing is kind of like, you need, like, once again, you need someone powerful enough, and so it's like, all right, if you don't have one person who's powerful enough, then the next and best thing is to get two people.
Well, that's my point. I think that those two, where they're at in their training, could probably beat Palpatine. Certainly not during his prime.
No.
But maybe now, if, like you said, he's in a weakened state or just age.
Right.
You know, who knows?
Yep.
But, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think, first of all, do you think Luke Skywalker is still alive? Do you think that they're going to resurrect him somehow, you know, back in the flesh? And more to the point, do you think they should do that? You know, I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on the whole Luke Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker controversy? Because it's true, I've read a lot of those rumors too, and people go back and forth all the time. So feel free to go back and forth in our comment section, and, you know, we'll jump in there too and let us know. All right.
Yes, sir.
Now we get to probably my favorite segment.
Yep.
It's a little something where we answer your questions that you submit to us, and it's called Clear Your Mind. That's right. Once again, you ask the questions, we answer them. What's our first one?
All right, our first question comes from Holly Lester, and the question is, who would you like to see make a cameo appearance in The Rise of Skywalker?
So are we talking... I mean, I know you're not the one actually.
You want to call Holly?
Yeah, should we just like write to her and say, hey, wait, more clarification? Okay. If we're talking about, I'm going to assume she's talking about character. Because it's like make a cameo. I mean, it could be like an actor.
Right.
You know, that could be coming along. There really isn't a lot of clarification. So let's just try to do both.
Okay. Okay.
You know.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. Somebody making a cameo, like character-wise. It sounds kind of stupid, but Han Solo. Either in a flashback or something. That's kind of what I'd like to see.
Or a funeral scene.
Or a funeral scene would be kind of cool, maybe. You know, I mean, I could live with seeing Anakin. You know, again, it goes back to that. Or even, I mean, these are so like crazy answers, but Mace Windu. You know, I'd kind of like to see that. As far as actors, I don't know. You know, it's funny about Star Wars. I don't necessarily think in terms of man, I really want to see this actor in a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because, Lucas had always built on relative unknowns, at least at the time they were in the movies, to basically carry a particular trilogy.
Right.
So, I've never seen, or I don't think I've ever thought, like, oh, man, I really want to see this actor in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. I don't have one as far as the actor. I would definitely say character-wise, I would like to see someone from Rebels. Like
Rebels would be cool.
Like we saw the ghost, so maybe like, as they're flying in, it's like, Ezra Bridger, like, oh, wow, Ezra, there's something like that. Report this, something quick like that. Or
Ahsoka would be cool.
Ahsoka would be cool.
Actually, I wouldn't mind seeing Boba Fett. Like, let them, I know it's kind of like the Boba show, but I mean, let them actually explain, like, hey, he got out of the Sarlacc pit. It'd be a nice tie-in with the Mandalorian. They could do something like that. Again, I don't really want to see somebody shoehorned into the series either.
Right. I mean, like I said, the Anakin thing would make the most sense.
Like the Lando thing, I think, is really cool.
Yeah.
He would have been somebody. He was actually somebody I've been wanting to see since.
Well, they brought Lobot.
Yeah, sadly, the actor who played him has passed away.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Lobot. I'd like to see Lobot and Lando together again. I mean, everybody knows I have this Lobot fascination. It's probably unnatural, but, we're going to go with it.
Yeah. He's kind of like Data from, like, Star Trek in a way.
Kind of, yeah. But what about you guys? I mean, we obviously answered this question, but, who would you... She brings up a good point. Who would you like to see make a cameo, character or actor, in The Rise of Skywalker or any Star Wars film? All right, who's next?
All right, the next question comes from Paul Rusby. And his question is, do you think we're going to see the end of Chewbacca and the Falcon?
Well, I do remember there was a leak in The Rise of Skywalker. They released like the track listing on the soundtrack, and there's a track on there called Falcon's End. So that kind of tells me that maybe we are going to see the end of the Falcon. I hope not. I don't necessarily think they really have a real reason to off these characters, or in this case, a ship, just because.
Well, I mean, I think that,
I mean, granted, they're tying up the movie, but it's like, look, just because this particular movie ends doesn't mean that everything in it has to die.
All right, this isn't The Last Jedi. But I mean, you kind of get it, though. It's kind of like, with the end of the Sith, the end of the Jedi, like that's supposed to all end at the end of this movie. And so, the Falcon has been around, for a while, and Lando seems to is back in his original owner's hands. Mm-hmm. And if Lando's flying the Falcon and he's got Chewie with him, and they're like, making this big
like
sacrifice,
stand,
and it's like, hey guy, hey Chewie, it's been a ride, man, and it's just like you gotta
wonder if the cape room is back.
Yeah, I think Han or them.
I mean, they showed Lando wearing a very similar outfit to what Donald Glover wore in Solo, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I always call it the Gordon Gartrell look.
Yes.
From the Cosby Show.
Well, here's my prediction on this. These are actually good questions because, a lot of times when people write these questions in, they're very definitive. It's very easy to answer. It's like, no, that's wrong, or yes, that kind of thing, or here's the answer to this. These questions today have been more, I don't know, they could have almost fit in any one of our other segments. It's like, I don't know, but here's my prediction. I think Chewie lives, Falcon dies. That's where I'm going to go with it.
All right. Okay, I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Which one would you rather see survive, Chewie or the Falcon?
That's really tough. First of all, because like I said, in the whole, what was that thing called? It's that whole like Yuuzhan Vong, novel series or whatever. That was when they initially killed Chewie off by, like, basically a moon fell on him, when he was sacrificing himself. And at first, it's kind of weird because you really don't think of Chewie as, like, that I guess, important or, you know, a character in which you're emotionally attached. But what's really funny is that really did kind of hit me hard. And also, and this is where it really gets to the answer to your question, which is more or less the point. You feel it more through how it affects Han to have Chewie gone. And now it's the flip side of that in the movies, because with Han dead, it's sort of like Chewie's, you know, he doesn't have his partner in crime.
Yeah. So it won't be time for him to go anyway.
Exactly. It's like, it's so heartbreaking.
It's kind of like that marriage, like, you know, when you hear about married people and they like the spouse dies, and then,
and then
like a year later, like the other person dies, because it's like,
I actually knew somebody where they died like 3 days later.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, man,
I did really miss them that much. And yeah, I mean,
I don't know if I'd really want to be that attached. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I mean, I get married, I definitely want to love my wife unconditionally, but to the point to where it's kind of like, you know, they're gone for like 2 days, you're like, yeah, I can't do this anymore, you know.
That'd be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for our show this week. You know, I hope you guys are enjoying it. Like I said, you know, leave your thoughts in the comments section. And if you have any show ideas for other shows that we might want to do, you know, hit us up at Head to Head SW on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you know, anything, you know, and let us know what you guys, you know, would like to see. After all, we are trying to make a lot of these videos for you guys. You know, it's fun for us, but, you know, we want more subscribers, and we want to engage with you guys more. So that's going to do it. I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.